It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Well, if you look on the Sharp Interactive board, you see all the leasing logos. All those leasing friends of ours that help end users acquire technology and equipment, acquire assets so they can pay over time. What a great model. It's been a great model for like 40 years. But guess what, folks? The models change it rapidly. And the leasing companies, well, guess what? They got to make some changes themselves. And I have to ask all the leasing companies, can you change? Can you make these changes so that the dealers, when they're delivering the goods and services of the future, you can still be a partner with them? Because at the end of the day, the legacy way of leasing in our industry, leasing over-spec'd and oversold A3s, well, those days are changing forever. Do you realize there's a whole lot more money going into the cloud than going into leasing a technology asset? Let me say that again. There's a whole lot more money going into the cloud than leasing a technology asset. And at the end of the day, this is going to have a big impact on leasing companies. So let's go through this PowerPoint I put together. The first thing I want to do is talk about this rate hike. Folks, since March of 2022, we've had 8 rate hikes. Just a short time ago, it was 0.25%. Now it's between 4.50 and 4.75. This is a huge impact on the industry. It's going to impact the dealers' credit lines. It's going to impact the end users. It's going to impact the OEMs. It's going to make everybody in business scrutinize what they do more and more. It's going to make everybody in business look at ways they can cut costs. Look at things they have to change or modify. It's going to force change to all the status quo that have been living in this really low rate world for a long, long time, especially our leasing company friends. Ladies and gentlemen, back in the late 90s, I read a book called Sacred Cows. Sacred Cows make the best burgers. I still got my copy. It was a white cover. You can see it's ripped up. I read it a lot. It's a great book. Let me read you this little synopsis. Sacred cows, outdated and costly business practices such as reports that are never read or a slowdown of innovative ideas exist in every company. Inspired by insights gained from more than 400 programs conducted with all types of organizations, the authors of Sacred Cows make the best burgers, show how corporations can kill off the sacred cows that are crippling them. Sacred cows. When I think about the Document Imaging Channel, those folks who sell supply and service print equipment, and all the sacred cows within that industry, we got a whole lot of slaughtering to do. And I want to share some of my thoughts on that. So I put a list together of some of the sacred cows inside of our industry. And ladies and gentlemen, this list is pretty scary. Because a lot of these things, I don't know if the industry has enough willpower to slaughter them. Let me share my thoughts. A3, what a big sacred cow that is. Our whole industry is built on overspeccing and overselling A3 equipment. It's insanity. We got OEMs kicking off new A3s when they know the whole world's moving to A4. Last year, I listened to a webinar where an ex-CEO here in America, of one of the OEMs, made a comment that, we knew that it was going to be more A4 12 years ago. And I'm thinking to myself, well, you're one of the only OEMs that doesn't have their own A4 line. You know why? Because they couldn't quite comprehend how to kill the sacred cow of A3. But I'm hoping right now that all the OEMs are realizing how important it's going to be to kill off the sacred cow of A3. Yes, people will still have A3, but not near like they used to. 5-year MFP lease is prematurely upgraded. This sacred cow's done. It's got to get slaughtered. Does our industry really believe we're going to continue to overspec? Put a bunch of machines in hallways? In businesses where nobody is? With processes that eliminate print? Here's the deal, folks. The financials for the OEMs are coming out next week. I'll share a lot of my thoughts on that. But they're talking about the A3s. They're getting them out in the marketplace. They're all excited about this. Well, I'm going to tell you something. Stay excited. Because the next cycle, you won't be doing it. So get all your excitement out right now. Get all your excitement out right now. Because these 5-year leases, as they start to end, guess what? The end users aren't going to do it the way they did. Product-centric over service-centric. Our industry's sacred cow of product centricity is insane. We've been trying to transition into a services-based model for over a decade and a half, and we're still having classes and discussions on how we're going to pay salespeople to deliver services. And then we got salespeople leading the charge talking about how they can't get paid, so they sell products. Their dealership hasn't figured out how to pay them on services, so they overspec A3 because they know they get paid. It's insanity, right? It's a sacred cow that's got to get slaughtered. Ineffective people close to retirement holding back innovation. I'll tell you what, folks, this is the category, the sacred cow, that disgusts me the most. You're at the meeting, you're sitting at the big table with your friends, and they say this to you. Yeah, most of the stuff Ray's talking about, I'll be retired before it happens, thankfully. When you hear that, tell that person to get up from the table and get the hell out of our industry and go retire. Because that sacred cow is killing us. And we all hear this, and we're hearing it way too much as our industry ages. Get the hell out of the way and allow the younger generation to come in and help this industry transition. Because, you know what? We don't need people in the industry that are sitting around waiting till they retired, living in status quo, afraid to bring up any challenges. And there's way too much of that. Business relationships based on physical over digital. Folks, I get it. Especially the old folks who believe if you can't shake somebody's hand and give them a hug, you can't sell them anything. Ladies and gentlemen, we got to rethink this. You know, you're just a means to help your end user achieve a desired outcome. That's what we do as an industry. We provide the means for end users to get a desired outcome. Whether that's technology services or whatever it is, print services, you know, they're getting the outcome. We're giving them the means to that. And here's the deal. More and more end users of all products and services are determining their customer experience in where? The digital world, not the physical world. They're evaluating the experience in the digital world. How can I communicate with these people digitally? How can I go to their websites and buy things? Think about it, folks. Attempting innovation based on the benefit of the industry, not the end user. This is a big one. We got folks out there coming up with innovative ideas, and all these innovative ideas are about the industry dragging the past to the future. None of these ideas are about real end users. When we hear executives talking about, oh, our e-commerce site gives a place for people to set up an appointment, and that's the biggest thing they could say is a benefit? How ridiculous. People want to go to an e-commerce site and they want to click buy now, use a charge card. They don't want to fill out a lease application. They don't want to do a 5-year lease. Now, folks, I get it. Some folks might want to do that. You might want to have some of those capabilities, but that's not the driving force. That's not the driving force of the innovation. And we're driving innovation based on what's good for an industry to drag the past to the future. We got to stop doing it. Marketing awards, terrible influence. Folks, I have a lot of fun with the total insanity of these marketing awards that our industry plasters all over the place. But at the end of the day, and take this serious, I believe that these crazy, insane marketing awards are actually causing behaviors inside our industry. In other words, we have people focus more on this nonsensical award than they're focusing on the end users they service and support. We have turned great work, we have turned hard work into some kind of commodity when we plaster these nutty awards all over the place that mean absolutely nothing to anybody. We got to start really thinking about it, because that's a sacred cow that needs to get slaughtered immediately. Because, folks, what we're doing is we're hanging around these pastures of least resistance, corralling with other folks that are insecure about their place in the future, hoping that fence doesn't come down. I want you to knock the damn fence down. Go out and explore what can be new, what can be different. So I want to do a comparison between Great America and Fiddle. And we all know Great America. Great America's been in the space for a long time. You know, ladies and gentlemen, here's the reality. When I was a dealer back in the early 2000s, I got a bond sent to me in the mail from Tony over at Great America. It was a $50 bond, and it said, hey, here's $50 bond. Can you call me up? What a great idea, by the way. And I'm thinking, well, I got to call this guy. And basically, he was looking for dealers to use Great America Leasing. And one of the things they were doing at Great America Leasing back in those days was they could answer the damn phone in 2 rings. And back in those days, we all remember, there wasn't the technology we have today in leasing. And at the end of the day, the other leasing companies pretty much sucked at customer service. We'd all pretty much agree with that, right? Come on. Great America came in there. They were delivering this great experience. Answer the phone, 2 rings. Not too long ago, I was sitting with some Great America folks, and I asked one of the young interns a question. What do you believe is your greatest differentiator? And that person actually said, well, we're quick. We answer the phone, 2 rings. And I looked at that person. I said this. I said, well, the innovator is going to come into the marketplace, and they're going to deliver a better experience around leasing, and they're not even going to accept phone calls. And then I paused. Because, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes I believe our industry, and not just Great America, but everybody in our industry, we have an added value that we put in a suitcase to take along our journey to the future, and we still have the same added value. I guess nobody told us, hey, we got to stop along the way every once in a while, open up the suitcase, take out the old added value, put a new added value in, and then continue on the journey. And I think everybody in our industry has to start thinking about what's the new added value. Has to evaluate whether or not the added value you're talking about in the marketplace is even relevant in the marketplace. I get it, relationships are important, but don't discount the realities of how the modern day buyer is evaluating experiences. And it is nothing like those relationships that we had back in the early 2000s. There has to be a big shift in mindsets and in thinking. But I wanted to compare Great American Fiddle for a couple of reasons, because I want to ask them both, what sacred cows are you all willing to slaughter? Let's start over here with Fiddle. Fiddle used to be called XFS, Xerox Financial Services. They slaughtered their name. Ladies and gentlemen, this is huge. When you're willing to slaughter your name because you don't want to be pigeonholed as you go to the future, that's a big deal. A real big deal. Fiddle knows that they have to do a whole lot more than leasing MFPs. Fiddle is on a journey to find those new industries, those new end users, those new partners, because they know they're still going to lease the MFPs and the printers. They'll still do that, but they also realize that every year they're going to do a whole lot less of that, and every lease they write is going to be worth a whole lot less. And so at the end of the day, they're going to have to slaughter a lot of those sacred cows. A lot of the infrastructure they had at Fiddle that was focused on what? Leasing MFPs and equipment. We know that our friends at Great America have tried to get into this IT space. They built this Collaborate, this master service provider platform about a decade and a half ago. And folks, back then it was fantastic. Everybody applauded them. They're trying to help the industry transition. I got to ask them all again, and I did a video on this not too long ago. Is that a sacred cow that maybe needs to go away? Is that still bringing value? A lot of that was to help the print channel get into IT services. You're also in the IT services space trying to get them to lease technology, but we already know that the disruption in value of leasing isn't just in the document imaging channel, the print channel. The disruption in the value of leasing also exists in the technology sector because, like I said, there's more money going into the cloud than there is going into technology on leases. Something we all got to think about. One of the things when I'm comparing these two people, I looked on LinkedIn and Great America says they have 500 plus employees. Last I saw published by them, they were showing they had 2.5 billion in assets. They have 500 employees. That number seems high to me. When I looked at Fiddle, they say they have 250 plus employees and they have 3.3 billion in assets. So there's a big discrepancy there. And you would have to ask yourself, as the industry changes, as leasing becomes more, well, let's say digital friendly, what happens to the manpower? Folks, the worst thing that any company can even comprehend is the elimination of manpower. These are people. They're people. But I think that's a question to be asked. and at the end of the day, what are these organizations going to do, and what sacred cows can they kill? I pulled up the websites of both of these organizations, and when I go to Great America's website, it says equipment financing, and I've always saw Great America as this great leasing company that helped dealers finance print equipment. And I know that, they're doing other things. I did a video not too long ago regarding collaborators and my thoughts on that, and I shared in that video that Great America had bought a franchisee leasing company. And, you know, they're looking outside that space, but I would bet you today that at least 70% of their business, if not more, is coming from the print sector. When I look at their website, I see them as an equipment leasing company. They have the buzzwords that we all have, right? The as-a-service programs, flat rate, bundling services, usage billing, finance agreements. And they just look like an equipment leasing company. And whether it's Great America or any other actors that were on the board when I started this episode, you know, they're all going to have to redefine who they are in the future, right? And they need to define that now so they could go to the future. Whether that's Great America, Fiddle, or anybody else. When I go to Fiddle's website, I feel like I'm more on a financial services website, just the way it is. And a lot of the other players in the space, I get that same feeling that we're in the financial services sector. And so, you know, how is all this going to change? How is Fiddle going to continue to redefine themselves? How's Great America going to continue to define themselves? And what sacred cows are they willing to kill? But ladies and gentlemen, you know, relationships in leasing could really be detrimental to your future if you think about these relationships as you thought about them back in the year 2000. Because the world's different and the buyers are different. And the industry's leasing partners are really going to start having to figure this out and figure it out quick because they're going to get impacted from both sides. You know, the document imaging channel is moving into this IT services, cybersecurity services world. But again, there's no equipment being financed in that world. Not anywhere at the levels it was when everybody had the aspirations to get into it. So even if the leasing companies achieve the success, something they haven't really been able to do for 15 years inside the IT space, those small companies, if they could miraculously just get all these IT services company to start using them to lease all this technology, they're going to find out that they're not leasing a whole lot of technology because more money is going into the cloud and then leasing technology assets. And so all these folks are going to have to think about this and think about it hard. And I really believe that sometimes, I'm going to do a separate episode on this, but sometimes our corporate cultures have been hijacked by the internal customers. And when corporate cultures are hijacked by the internal customers, we forget about what? The external customers. And we start creating these sacred cows. We start corralling up together so we can protect ourselves from the insecurities that we fear in the future. And all the leasing companies are going to go through some major, major challenges. They're going to have to cut cost. They're going to have to look at all their deliverables. What's in the way of our core, and how does our core deliverable have to change? Jack Welch, one of the greatest CEOs of all time, says this: change is a continuous process, not an event. Change is a continuous process, not an event. And I want to wrap up today's episode with this. I believe those on journeys toward continuous relevance are easily corralled into pastures of least resistance, where the insecure find camaraderie in creating a complacency event. We cannot be corralling up in pastures of least resistance with a camaraderie of other insecure people, because if we do that, we're going to stifle everything. And I also want to say this: permissions to show up are not innovation. That's to all the leasing companies. We see leasing companies that continuously modify their platforms so they could be more digital. We all get that, right? But everything these leasing companies do today is just permissions to show up in a modern leasing world. That's just the reality. And permissions to show up, that's just where you start to be remarkable. So what's your remarkability going to be in the future? Great America, it won't be about answering the phone in 2 rings, I assure you. Fiddle, it won't be about leasing Xerox equipment. You know it, I assure you, you're right. It'll be a whole different day with a whole different means to possibly a whole different outcome for the end users you all service and support. And everybody watching me knows this. Status quo is the killer of all that will be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.